Say this together, please. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. How lovely are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. I come into your holy house and bow toward your holy sanctuary in awe of you. Lord, I love the house where you dwell, the place where your glory sits. I prostrate myself and bow. I kneel before the Lord, my Maker. In your great kindness, answer me with the truth of your Yeshua. For Yeshua, your Messiah, is truth and the answer to all that we seek on your holy Shabbat. Baruch hu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Me'olam Va'ed.
Blessed be the Lord who is to be blessed.
Bless the Lord who is blessed everlasting.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Blessed be the name of his glorious kingdom, everlasting. Va'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'kol levavcha u'v'kol nafshecha u'v'kol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavacha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha u'vlechtecha v'derech u'vshakbecha u'vkumecha Ukshartam laot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot bein einecha, uchtavtam al mezuzot tetecha, ubit arecha. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And these words that I set up for you today shall be upon your heart, and you shall teach them repeatedly to your children. You shall speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, when you rise up. You shall put the sign upon your hand, and they shall be bands between your eyes. You shall write them upon your doorposts of your house and in your gates. Is the microphone on the iPad?
We can't tell.
No, is it the button pushed? Is the button pushed? Green light.
You're live? Yes.
Okay. Hodula Adonai kir'u vishmo, hodiu v'amim alilotav, shiru lo zamru lo sichu b'kol niflotav, hit hallelu b'shem kadsho, yismach lev mavakshe Adonai.
Give thanks to the Lord, call upon his name, make known his deeds among the peoples. Sing to him, sing praises to him. Speak of all his wonders, glory in his holy name. Let the heart of those who seek the Lord be glad.
Seek the Lord in his strength, seek his face continually. Remember all his wonderful deeds that he has done, his wonders and the judgments from his mouth. Zerah Yisrael Abdo, B'nai Yaakov Bechirav, seed of Israel his servant, sons of Jacob his chosen ones. Today is the 15th of Av. Do you know what that is?
Happy day.
Happy day, right? Tu B'Av. There were two, it says in the Mishnah, that the two happiest times of the year was Yom Kippur, believe it or not. Yom Kippur after God answered their prayers, not before. After God answered their prayers, and then Tu B'Av, the 15th of Av, it's kind of like Valentine's Day, when God made shidduchim. A shidduch is a match. And it's when God put people together, and there's a lot of happy things that take place. Now, we just finished with the 9th of Av last week, and so the rest of Av is called Menachem Av, which means Av the Comforter. So it's a good time. Yes?
That almost makes sense with what happened last night, right? As Shabbat was starting, where as to the odds of starting. So I guess I got my little Valentine's gift from the man upstairs.
You got a kiss, huh?
I got a kiss.
So, also, we need to pray about the air conditioner some more. We need there needs to be giving in the congregation. There needs to be giving because we're incurring expenses, but there's very little coming in. So I would ask that you all give. There's a basket somewhere. Oh, it's on the back bench, and there's envelopes to put your tithes and offerings in, if you would be so kind. So let's say this prayer together, and we'll get started with the teaching. Let's stand. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan et kol darkav la'amo Yisrael ketavniot l'kol hadevarim she'bashamayim. Blessed are you, Lord our God, everlasting King, who has given all of his ways to his people Israel of pictures of him. Can we all do it out loud together, please? Both the Hebrew and the English, please. Let's try again. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan et kol darkav la'amo Yisrael ketavniot l'kol hadevarim she'bashamayim. Blessed are you, Lord our God, everlasting King, who has given all of his ways to his people Israel as pictures of all things heavenly. You may be seated. That's the whole purpose of the Torah. It's the whole purpose of Judaism. It's the whole purpose of the, quote, commandments. They're not commandments, they're pictures. They're set up to look at and learn from and listen to. That's what their whole purpose is. So the name of the teaching is Do You See Zion? I don't always have like a clever, a clever title that sums everything up real nice and clean. But this is a good title. It's simple, and it says exactly what I want to say. Do you see Zion? Do you see Zion? It's personal. So we're only going to read one small portion from V'etchanan, and I'm going to basically just talk about one thing after we get the preliminaries out of the way. So you can see these words that I've emboldened. They all are the same thing. To show, see the good land, this good mountain and Lebanon. Lift up your eyes, see with your eyes, and you will see. Over and over and over again, God said to Moshe, see, look, see. Yeah, but you're not going in. You're not going in. But I want you to see. I want you to see. I want you to see. You're going to see. You will see. And so it's called Do You See Zion? Because what I'm going to show you is that Moshe saw Zion. Way before it existed, he saw Zion. But the question is, do you see Zion? So let's talk about the title, V'etchanan. Now it's translated, there's different ways to translate it. I taught about this last year, that some say, I also asked for grace. Some say, I pleaded. Some say, anybody else have a different translation from I pleaded with you at that time? Well, you should be looking at the verse. Everybody should be looking at the words in the Bible. This we're going to go over this, but you should be looking at the verse. Devarim 3:23. So, usually translated as I pleaded. This is a very bad translation. Because the center...
Yeah, this says pleaded.
Pleaded. Anybody else have anything else? Be sought. Okay. That still doesn't really say anything.
Right.
Especially because it's like not even English, it's Old English. So that's hard. I mean, it's hard to understand. Like when you read that, most people just read it and they go, okay, cool.
But Hanan would be the root word for grace, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's where we're going.
Yep.
So the root word for V'etchanan, it's a long word. The root is just Hanan, or two sounds, chen. 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 Chen means grace. So how would you and I grace to mead? Because that's literally what it means. And v'etchanan. Etchanan is personal, possessive. Grace to me. I don't even know what that means. So really the best way to, believe it or not, the best way to translate this is, grace to mead. Now the rabbis say that the numerical value of v'etchanan, the word, is 515, I believe. And that means that he pleaded with God 515 times. Please let me in, please let me in, let me see the land, let me go in, I want to go. 515 times. And God said, by the way, that's why God says, enough. That's the way it's translated. And God says to him, enough, enough. I think I skipped that part. I put 3 dots and ellipsis. But that's what it says. God says, enough. Basta. That's enough. I don't want to hear anymore. So, and then he answers him with all this seeing stuff. Well, what he asked for was not just asking for something. He wasn't nagging. He was asking for grace. And this had happened before. We're going to talk about this. So, I'm going to translate it as grace to mead. I also grace to mead the Lord at that time, saying, O Lord God, you have begun to show, is the first one, your servant, your greatness, and your strong hand. For what God is there in heaven and on earth who can do such mighty works and acts as you? Let me, I pray, cross over and see the good land. That's 2. Beyond the Jordan. And he also wants to see this good mountain and Lebanon. This good mountain and Lebanon. That's basically what I'm going to teach on. This good mountain in Lebanon. But the Lord was angry with me on your account and wouldn't listen and said to me, now, I can't remember how it's translated. He said to me, enough or something. How is yours translated? Anybody got a translation there?
And here, it says,
Enough.
enough of that. Speak no more
Okay.
to me about this matter.
Enough of that. Speak no more to me about this matter.
up.
Now, what it says in Hebrew is nothing like that. It is great for you, Rav Lecha.
What?
Rav, like rabbi, Rav, high one, great one, big one, like master or sir, like sir. That's Rav, is sir, a high one. So that's what God says, Rav Lecha, to you. I have no idea what that means. It could be, it's great to you, it's high to you, I don't know. It's high to you, or the rabbis translate it as, you have a master. You have a master. In other words, dude, I've already done it. I've already given you everything you need. I've already done everything. I've already been your rabbi. It's not like, enough, basta. It's not like that in Hebrew. There's a purpose here. There's something going on here that is very, very important. It's not, shut up, I don't want to hear it, which is how most people take it. So there's something going on here. It is great to you, or you have a master. Speak to me. Don't talk to me about this anymore. Go up to the top of Pisgah, lift your eyes. Now, in the Bible, every single time it says lift your eyes, the rabbis say that means look into the future in the spirit. Right. Every single time. 100% of the time in the Tanakh. There's not one instance where the rabbis do not say this means he lifted up his eyes as a prophet, or he lifted up his eyes to see the future, or he was taken to the future, or he was a prophet. Just straight up, he was a prophet. 100% of the time. So when God says, go up to Mount Pisgah, it's not just go up there, go look at the land, and then die. It's, I want you to go up there, and I'm going to show you something.
Go up and see the future.
Go up and see the future. See with your eyes. Lift up your eyes to the west, north, south, and east, and see with your eyes. Why does he say it twice? Lift up your eyes and see with your eyes. Because the first time, he's looking into the future. Now follow this. The first time when he says lift up your eyes, he's saying go look into the prophetic future. And the second time, he's there. And he sees with his eyes. Now, is there another prophet you can think of in the Bible who was taken to the future and he saw all this stuff?
Isaiah.
No. It says, literally says, he was taken there and then he saw.
John of Patmos.
Very good. John on Patmos, on the island of Patmos. Exactly. It says that. It says he was taken in the Spirit to the Lord's day, to the day of the Lord, and then he saw. You shall not cross over this Jordan, but charge Joshua and encourage him and strengthen him, for he shall go over at the head of this people, and he will give them as an inheritance the land, what does it say? Which you see. What land is he saying? Where was he taken?
The kingdom.
Where was he taken? I said it like 8 times. Where was he taken?
Just said,
To the future. To the future. All right, so we saw last week that it was not a land that God was giving them, but it was rest. It was a time period. Well, this is the same thing. He says, lift up your eyes. He's looking to the future, and then he sees it, and then God says, Joshua is going to give him that land that you see in the future. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right, so it's very, very simple if you understand that he saw prophetically to the day of the Lord. So let's talk about V'etchanan. I also graced to meet the Lord at that time. V'etchanan, it's translated, I entreated. It's just a bad translation because the root is chanan, which means to incline toward, to be favorably inclined, to favor somebody, to be gracious, to show grace or mercy. Compassionated. It's an old world word meaning to be shown compassion. To be the object of pity. To be favored, to receive favor. Chana means to bow down, to decline, to be lowered. Well, that's grace. Grace is you're low, you're small. You're small, you're low. To decline, to set oneself down, to encamp, to pitch a tent. In other words, to set down. Grace or mercy. And then just the two little letter, chen, simply means grace. Simply means grace. So that's the root of that word, V'etchanan. But how would you translate that? And you can't say asked for grace because the word ask isn't in the word. So all you can do is, and it's personal possessive to me. So how would you translate that? And grace to me is best I can do. Anybody got any other ideas? No? Okay. Now, he says, grace to me at that time. Why does he say at that time? Well, the reason is that this wasn't the first time it happened. This is the second time it happened. So he's saying it was at that time when we were up at Baal Peor, at the end, after the 40 years, at the end of the 40 years. But this had happened before. So let's review the time. And you're going to see in blue, see where it says praise 40 days in blue? That's the first time it happened. All right, now I don't know if you know this. Chris, Robert, Joseph, you might remember. But it says, how long did Moses go without food and water? Fasting. 40 days, right?
40 days, a few
Say it
times.
again, Chris.
120 days.
Very good.
Yeah, it was
Very
3
good.
times 40.
So Chris, no. Yeah, it was 120. Robert, did you know that?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So it was 120. Well, here's the time frame of how it works. 6th of Sivan is Shavuot. Moses ascended. He was there for 40 days and 40 nights without food. To the 16th of Tammuz. 30 days would be the 6th of Tammuz. Had 10 days, 16th of Tammuz. Then 17th of Tammuz, he comes down off the mountain. He sees the sin of the golden calf, the golden Egel Zahav, the golden baby cow. Holy cow. And he smashes the tablets. Then the next day, after they slaughter some of the people who had worshipped the Egel Zahav. The next day, he prays now down in the camp. He doesn't go up on the mountain, now he's down in the camp, and he does it again. 40 days. Well, 30 days would be the 18th of Av. You add 10 days, 28th of Av. Now, Av has only 29 days. There's no 30th. It's just 29 days. And so the next day after that is Elul 1. Now he goes back up to the mountain because God says, come back up to the mountain. He goes up and he carves another set of tablets, and he carves the words on them, right? And he goes up. Nobody stopped me. He does not carve the words on them. God carved the words again with his finger. But Moses cut out the luchot, the tablets. So he brings them back up. He's there again for 40 days and 40 nights. That brings us to 120 days and nights without water. Well, this time that he's in the camp down, he's praying that God doesn't wipe the Jews out from the planet. And he is grace to me. Only it's for all of Israel. Well, now, at the end of the 40 years, he's grace to me for himself. And God does not change his plan. But when he did change his plan the first time. He did. Because God said what his plan was. Do you remember what it was?
Kill everybody.
Yeah. You don't have to raise your hand, but go ahead.
I heard somebody else preach on that when Moses went up the second time, he's like, well, because you guys did this stuff, I'm going to send an angel and he's going to talk to you. And Moses is like, that's it.
We're not talking about when he went up the second time. We're talking about when he's down on earth praying that God doesn't wipe him out. Do you remember what God's plan was that Moses was praying against? That was the question. No? All right. He said, I'm going to wipe out all of Israel and start over with you, Moses. That's what he said. I'm going to get rid of every single Jew and start over with you. Okay? Now, I take that to mean also Joshua. All right. So, he goes back up on Elul 1. He's there for 40 days. That brings us from Elul 1 to Yom Kippur. And then he comes back down on Yom Kippur. All right. Well, then, the last one is Adar 7. Moses' birthday and death day. And he asks grace to me. So what we're reading right now is, it's either right before his birthday or it's on his birthday and death day. When he says grace to me. In Deuteronomy, at the end of the 40 years, it's his birthday or death day, or close to it. All right, so now we're going to talk about this whole thing. What does he say? What does God tell Moses he wants him to see? He says, I want you to see. Well, he says, you've begun to show your servant. Let me, I pray, cross over and see the good land beyond the Jordan, this good mountain and Lebanon. So he says, I want to go across, I want to see this good mountain. I want to go across the river and see this good mountain. What is he talking about? And Lebanon. Lebanon is way, way, way up north. And this good mountain, if he says this, Hazeh, that means one he's standing on. So I'm very confused about this. Well, the rabbis make it very extremely clear. It says in Hebrew, Hahar Hatov Hazeh. Hahar Hatov Hazeh. Hahar, the mountain, Hatov, the good, Hazeh, the this. This good mountain. And Rashi just says, this is Jerusalem. It's that simple. Well, what gives him the authority to say it's Jerusalem? There's got to be verses that say that this good mountain means Jerusalem. That's what we're going to look at. And then, and the Lebanon. Rashi says, this is the temple. Not Lebanon, the temple. What gives him the right to say that? Who says, Rashi? I'm really finding it hard to concentrate.
Sorry,
It,
the sound was
the,
not
um, the, the it's just like Paul. People read the words of Paul and just go, okay. But there's got to be some rationale and some right to say what Shaul is saying. In other words, you got to know what he's quoting. Well, what gives Rashi the right to say that Lebanon equals the temple?
Right.
It's the same
Where it's
thing.
located.
It could be something else. I mean, Lebanon's 100 miles north. And he goes, oh, that means the temple. Just like that. And we all go, yes. Oh, he's a Jew. Okay. Well, I'm going to show you why he says this so that you can understand it. And I want you to read these two very interesting portions from Jewish writings. The first one is from Avot de Rabbi Natan. That means the fathers, like sayings of the fathers from Rabbi Nathan. Chapter 4, verse 5. Rabban Yochanan replied to Vespasian. Now, Vespasian was one of the emperors. One of the emperors. And he says to Vespasian, there's a tradition with us that the temple will not be delivered into the hand of a common soldier, but to a king. As it is stated, and he quotes Isaiah 10:34, and he shall cut down the thickets of the forest with iron, and Lebanon shall fall by a mighty one. Now what he's saying is that verse in Isaiah is the temple, that Lebanon is the temple. And the axes are chopping down what? What are the axes of the mighty one chopping down?
People.
What?
Trees.
In the verse.
trees.
The thickets of the forest, trees, and that those are the Jews. That's what he's saying. He's saying that the trees are people, that they're the righteous Jews, or unrighteous Jews, and Lebanon is the temple. And he says, where Lebanon is identified with the temple, and mighty one is applied to a king. And then there's this passage in the Talmud Yoma. You know what Talmud Yoma is about? Yom Kippur. So this is all about Yom Kippur. And it says, by the way, this is red. I don't know why this is red.
We're not using it.
Okay. And the doors of the sanctuary opened by themselves as a sign that they would soon be opened by enemies until Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai scolded them. Scolded who?
Israel.
Wrong.
Oh. Okay.
Scolded who? Don't be afraid to be wrong. It's okay. You can be wrong.
The priest at that time?
No. Listen to it again. And the doors of the sanctuary opened by themselves
It's called the
as a
door.
sign that they would soon be opened by enemies until Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai scolded them. Scolded who?
The doors.
The doors. It's talking about the doors. So Rabbi Yochanan comes by, he sees these doors were 30 feet tall. He comes by, he sees these gigantic doors, and he says, I'm scolding you. And they started to close. And look what he did to scold them. He said to them, he said to the sanctuary, oh, sanctuary, sanctuary, why do you frighten yourself with these signs? I know about you, that you will ultimately be destroyed. And Zechariah ben Iddo has already prophesied concerning you. Open your doors, O Lebanon. Therefore, what is Lebanon in this passage?
The temple.
The temple.
Oh.
It's another verse in Zechariah showing us that the Lebanon is the temple. And Lebanon is to open its doors, the temple is to open its doors so that the fire may devour your cedars. Therefore, what are the cedars?
People.
People.
Jews.
They're the Jews inside the temple. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because, I don't know. I'm wrong. I just remembered.
Okay, all right. So he's quoting Zechariah 11:1. Lebanon is an appellation for the temple. Rabbi Yitzhak ben Tavlai said, why is the temple called Lebanon? Levanon in Hebrew. Because it malvin, whitens the Jewish people's sins, alluded to by the root lavan, meaning white. And that's what lavan means. It means white, to whiten, to glisten, to polish, to clean, to launder. You know that verse in Matthew 17 where it says that Peter, John, Andrew, and James, I guess, Jacob, that they were with Yeshua. Is that right? Anyway, the 4 disciples were with Yeshua. They were up on the mountain, way up north, and they saw Yeshua with Elijah and who? Moses. And it said, and their clothes were glistening like no launderer can whiten them. That would be the word malbin and lavan. 2 times in one verse. That's what it's saying. Bright, glistening. Well, the temple's made out of white stone, marble. Why? Because it's a picture of removing the sin of the Jewish people. Malbin, removing the sin. All right, so let's talk about that. Here's a picture. Here's the temple up on the Temple Mount in the kingdom. This is in the kingdom. And it's bright white. And I just said that Moses and Elijah were with Yeshua. Where were they? Where was this cluster of people? Moses, Elijah, Yeshua, and the 4 disciples. Where were they?
On the hill,
Nope.
in the camp.
Nope.
On that hill.
Nope. Say it again. Nope. No. They weren't anywhere near Pisgah. They were in the kingdom. You know how we know this? Because it says, and 6 days later, Yeshua went up on the mountain with Peter, James, John, and Andrew. That's who it was. Peter, James, John, and Andrew. He went 6 days later. Well, if it's 6 days later, what day is it? Wow. If it's 6 days later after something, what number day is it? 7. It's the 7th day. It's the kingdom. And he saw Moses and Elijah and Yeshua bright white on the top of a hill, top of a mountain. And it's the kingdom. That's why Peter said, we should make 3 Sukkot. That's why he said it. Anyway, so you have the hill, bright white, up on top of the hill. You have the temple, bright white, up on top of the hill. Now this verse that we sang, Psalm 29, it says, the voice of the Lord, full of power and majesty. The voice of the Lord shatters the cedars. Who were the cedars in Lebanon?
Jews.
Right. Who were, and what was Lebanon?
The temple.
Okay, and it says in the verse, this is taken right from the verse, Psalm 29. It says, smashes the cedars of Lebanon. The voice of the Lord shatters the cedars, smashes the cedars of Lebanon. Does that sound good or bad?
I'm not happy.
It sounds horrible, right? It's fantastic. I'm going to tell you why it's fantastic, and this is really the whole message. It's the whole message for today. I usually don't have like a little crisp little thing to give you, but I do today. So I probably couldn't speak about this or especially preach it years ago, because this, the whole message of God to the Jewish people was give up. Give up. Give up and your life will be saved. Jeremiah preached this 20, 30 times to the Jewish people. It's in Jeremiah 20 to 30 times. And it says, Babylon is coming. They're coming to destroy you. They're coming to destroy the city, to destroy Lebanon. They're coming. There's nothing you can do about it. Give up and your life will be saved. Just give up and your life will be saved. But if you fight, you will die. And this is really the whole message. The whole message is, it's about humility. Grace. Grace, like I said, chanan means to bend down. Like humility. Anava, humility. And when it says that the voice of the Lord shatters the cedars, smashes the cedars in Lebanon, that is shattering or destroying or bringing down the righteous Jews in the temple, right?
Yeah.
Well, where's the temple? Is it just some place in Jerusalem? Or is it in the kingdom? Or in heaven? That's the real Zion. Well, was there ever a time when a Jew went to Zion in heaven and he was destroyed?
Like Isaiah when he
Yeah.
said, my mouth is
Very good.
already
Very good. Isaiah chapter 6, we sang this
I'm
too.
undone.
He says, I am undone. That's what he says. Isaiah chapter 6, let's go to that. Isaiah goes to heaven. He goes to the throne room. He goes to Zion. Zion is in heaven. It's Jerusalem in heaven. And he sees all the Jewish stuff there, the reality that all the Jewish stuff is a picture of. In the year of King Uzziah's death, I saw the Lord sitting on a throne. Now, how was he able to do that? Have you ever seen the Lord sitting on a throne? I haven't.
Nope.
And he's seeing it. He's actually seeing it.
Have a vision.
I saw the Lord sitting on a throne, high and lifted up, with the robe, with the edge, you know where it says the edge of Yeshua's robe that tzitzit were on? This is that word. Edge. The edge, it's translated as train, but that's an old English word. The edge of his me'il, robe, filling the temple. Seraphim. A seraph is made out of fire. Saraf means fire. So these fire beings stood above him, each having 6 wings, etc. Verse 3, and one of the seraphs called out to the other seraph and said, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzebaot, Malo Kol Haaretz Kavodo. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is filled or full of his kavod, his glory. And the foundation of the thresholds of what? The foundation of the thresholds of what?
The throne.
What's a threshold?
Entryway.
Entryway through what? A door.
A doorway,
A door.
yeah.
So there's a door there. And the threshold, like it's actually stone. Thresholds of what? Of the doorway of what? Of what? The temple.
Yes. had to
The
be.
temple in heaven. The foundation of the threshold of that doorway in heaven, the temple, trembled at the voice of him who called out while the temple was filling with smoke. Then I said, Oi! Oi li! Oi li! Oi to me! For I am undone. Now the word undone, it means to be destroyed. It means to be destroyed. Well, did God kill Isaiah?
Not really.
No. He still went on to prophesy. This is only chapter 6. But he did kill him. He humbled him. He blew him to shreds. He blew him apart. Think about this. I couldn't talk about this years ago because I wasn't blown to shreds by God. Well, now I have been. God killed me, so to speak. So when it says that his voice shatters the cedars of Lebanon, that's us. We're supposed to be shattered by God's voice. It's supposed to blow us apart. It's supposed to like separate all our body parts so that it can be seen. Listen to me, please. So that it can be seen. Now, the whole purpose of Judaism is to change, right?
Yeah.
What are we changing about ourselves in Judaism? It's called midot, our attributes. I've asked people this. What do you think is the most important attribute that people have? I mean, of all the attributes or ethics or morals or personality traits, what is the most important one? If you have to pick the one that's the very, very, very top, what would you think it would be?
Humility.
Humility? Yeah, that's what the rabbis say. That's exactly what the rabbis say. It is the most important midah or attribute. I couldn't talk about this years ago because I hadn't been humbled. Well, now that God has blown me apart, but I want you to think about this, what I'm saying. I keep saying blown apart, like separated. Like if you have something that's tight, you can't see into the crevices, like what's going on in there. But if it's separated and blown apart, you can see the details of what's going on. And that's what happened. God blew me apart, not now. God blew me apart. And because of it, he humbled me. I can see all the little details of stuff that's good and stuff that's bad where I couldn't see before. We need for God to blow us apart.
Yeah.
It's got to happen. It's got to happen. Because if it doesn't happen, you are then, I suppose, not looked at as one of the cedars of Lebanon. You may be a righteous person, but you're not like, by the way, do you know what cedars of Lebanon look like? They're huge, and they spread way out. And their canopy, the branches are like, they come out and they spread with all these spread out leaves in layers. In layers. Not now, please. In layers. And so it provides an enormous amount of shade, and they're huge trunks. This is why Solomon built the temple using the cedars of Lebanon. Because he knew, because of David. David taught him, we got to get those pictures of all those righteous Jews and get them down here into God's house. It's that simple. And so they put them in, they tied them together into rafts, and then let them go down the ocean to Jaffa, where they picked them up, brought them to the temple. So this concept of God, his voice blowing apart, destroying the cedars of Lebanon, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. I mean, it was prophesied that it was going to happen, and it was a bad thing that it happened, physically. But that was also a picture, because it says over and over again, Babylon is my war club. Babylon is my sword. Babylon is my spanky stick that I'm going to use to spank you, Israel. Assyria is the rod of my choice. So God sent Assyria, and God sent Babylon, and then God sent Rome as the spanky sticks. But the truth is that in our own life, we need God to blow us apart. God doesn't care how much Hebrew we know.
Right.
He just doesn't care. God doesn't care how often we wear a talit or a kippah. God doesn't care how big the tzitzit are. God doesn't care how big our beard is. God doesn't care about any of the stuff that are pictures that he himself designed and gave to us. Because it's what you do with them. And that's all that matters. What do you do with the Hebrew that you know? What do you do with the talit and the shofar and the kippah and the tzitzit and the prayers? What do you do with them? Do you just read prayers? Or do you let them blow you apart? Yesterday, I got blisters. I don't know if you can see the blisters on my hand. I got blisters on my fingers. I don't know if you can see that, but I got blisters on the palm of my hand. This is from pulling weeds and building walls of dirt back behind my house. And while I was doing it, I was singing, doing it all for my baby, do-do-do-do, 'cause she's as fine as she can be. Remember that song by Huey Lewis? Now, I wouldn't have done that years ago. I'm thinking to myself, I'm doing this for my wonderful, beloved wife. I wouldn't have done that years ago. But that's how I am now. I'm doing it, and I'm by the way, here's why I brought it up. I'm doing this, I'm singing to myself this song while interspersed with doing the morning prayers. because I started at like 7:30 or something like that. And I'm doing the morning prayers while I'm doing it and thinking about each prayer. What does that mean? What has that done to me? What do I think about me in that prayer? Now that's prayer.
Right.
That's prayer. And I just, I don't want to start crying, but I wasn't like that before. So,
I've known you long enough.
yeah. So, the voice of the Lord shatters the cedars, smashes the cedars in Lebanon. That's what we need. If you're going to excel, if you're going to excel in your marriage, you're going to excel in your life, if you're going to excel in your relationships, if you're going to excel in the most important one, your personal relationship with God, you have to be humbled. You have to be blown apart. There's just no other way to do it. And that's what Judaism, in every bit of its detail, says. Which, by the way, I didn't see for many years. Okay.
I think I got something that that's beautiful for this.
Not now, please. So, that's Lebanon. So we got, here's just a few verses about it. In Psalm 92, the Psalm for Shabbat, what does it say we're like? The righteous man will flourish like the palm tree, will grow like the cedar in where?
Lebanon.
Why will the righteous man grow like the cedar in Lebanon? Because that's where he is. That's where he is. He's in Lebanon. What's Lebanon?
Temple.
The temple. That's where he is. He's planted in Lebanon, in the temple. And so he grows in the temple, in Judaism. And then 1 Kings 7 says, Solomon built the house of the forest of Lebanon. Did that ever confuse you, that verse? That Solomon built the house of the forest of Lebanon?
A little bit.
Did that confuse you? I always pictured it was like he had some big house like in Lord of the Rings, like some big castle in the forest. Like his house, his own personal house. It's not. It's the temple. And we know this because it gives you the dimensions. And it always confused me. Wow, his house, his castle was the same dimensions as a temple. So Solomon built the house of the forest of Lebanon. Its length 100 cubits, that's the temple. Its width 50 cubits, that's the temple. Its height 30 cubits, that's the temple. And it says in Hebrew, Beit Ya'ar HaLevanon, house of the forest, Ya'ar, of Lebanon. Now, one of the suburbs, it's still there, of Jerusalem, one of the suburbs of Jerusalem is called Kiryat Ye'arim. Kiryat, city of Ye'arim, the forest. It's a suburb of Jerusalem. And it's called called the city of the forest. It's a Jerusalem suburb. And in Joshua, in 15 and 18, they both put it right near Jerusalem. And that's where it is. It's still there today. So, the house of the forest of Lebanon is the temple. 1 Kings 9:19, all the storage cities which Solomon had built, and all that it pleased Solomon to build in Jerusalem, in Lebanon, and in all the land under his rule. Now when you read this, it has commas. In Jerusalem, comma. In Lebanon, comma. And in all the land under his rule. That's not what it is. There's no commas in Hebrew. So how does it read in Hebrew? All that it pleased Solomon to build in Jerusalem, that is, in Lebanon. It's not a comma. It's a descriptive word for Jerusalem. What is Lebanon? The temple, right? So you could read it like that. All that it pleased Solomon to build in Jerusalem, the temple, and in all the land under his rule. Isn't that cool? So these are all establishing that Lebanon is the temple. 2 Kings 19:23, Assyria attacks Jerusalem, which is called Lebanon, and a forest. Let's go to that, 2 Kings 19. Because this calls Jerusalem Lebanon, and forest. I don't have my old man glasses. All right, 19. Let's go to verse 20. Okay, let me tell you what's going on. Hezekiah is the king. He is aided by Isaiah the prophet. Hezekiah is terrified. He goes into birth pangs because Assyria is coming with almost 200,000 men. And Isaiah is trying to encourage Hezekiah. In verse 21, this is Isaiah talking. This is the word that the Lord has spoken against him, against king of Assyria. She has despised you and mocked you, talking about Jerusalem, the virgin daughter of Tzion. She, Assyria, has shaken her head behind you, the daughter of Jerusalem. Whom have you reproached? He's talking about Sennacherib, the leader of Assyria. Assyria, who have you reproached and blasphemed? And against whom have you raised your voice and arrogantly lifted up your eyes? Against the Holy One of Israel. Through your messengers, you have reproached the Lord and have said, with my many chariots I have come up to the heights of the mountains, that's Jerusalem, to the remotest parts of Lebanon. That's the temple. Because that's who they're attacking. And I cut down its tall cedars and its choice cypresses. These are the Jews. And I entered its farthest lodging place, its thickest forest. Well, what's forest? Forest is a bunch of trees. That's Jerusalem. Kiryat Ye'arim. All right. Then on Isaiah 10, God will bring the Assyrians. Assyria is the same landmass as Babylon, basically. So you could say Babylon also. God will bring the Assyrians or Babylonians to destroy Jerusalem. And this is a passage that was quoted in the Talmud that we read a little bit ago, where it's the proof text. It's the proof text that it's in the first one. There's a tradition with us that the temple will not be delivered into the hand of a common soldier, but to a king. He shall cut down the thickets of the forest with iron, and Lebanon shall fall by a mighty one. And he's quoting Isaiah 10:34, right? The thickets of the forest, where Lebanon is identified with the temple, and the mighty one is applied to a king. All right. Whoops. Yeah, that's it. So now, Zechariah 11:2. This is what we also read. Jerusalem and the temple would be destroyed. This is what, who is the rabbi who rebuked the doors of the temple? Do you remember?
Zechariah?
No, that was the prophet that he quoted. Yochanan ben Zakkai.
Oh, okay.
He's the one who assembled the Mishnah. So Yochanan ben Zakkai scolded the doors of the temple, and he said, sanctuary, sanctuary, why do you frighten yourself with these signs? I know that you're going to ultimately be destroyed. And Zechariah ben Iddo already prophesied this concerning you. Open your doors, Lebanon, and allow the cedars to be cut down. All right, so that's all the verses that establish for us that the Lebanon is the temple. Now, he also says, Moses also says, I want to see the good mountain. Well, now we know what gives Rashi the right to say that Lebanon equals the temple. But what gives him the right to say that the good mountain is Zion, is Jerusalem? Because remember, this is Moses who says he wants to see it. Moses says this. How long was it before, from Moses to the time the temple was built?
Long time.
How long? You don't know? 480 years. So, in this picture, there's eyeballs looking into the future, seeing, and it says on top, Yerushalayim Me'olah, which means Jerusalem above. And then it says in the middle, Hamelucha, the kingdom. But you have to see it. You have to see it. You can't just, like read, I saw in the Bible it says this. That's not enough. Moses asked to see it. David saw it. Actually, all the prophets saw it. Every one of them saw it. We're supposed to see it. So, how do we know that Jerusalem is the good mountain? Psalm 48. Great is the Lord in the city of God, his holy mountain, beautiful in elevation. We sang this too. Yafeh Tov. Yafeh Nof. Yafeh Nof. Beautiful in height. Nof means height. Yafeh means pretty or beautiful. Yafeh Nof. Beautiful in elevation. Well, how high is Jerusalem? Anybody remember? Because I've taught this before. How high is Jerusalem?
A couple hundred feet.
Yeah, like 350 feet. How high is a mountain? How high does it have to be a mountain?
Higher than that.
1,000 feet. Got to be 1,000 feet to be a mountain. That's what goes from hill to mountain. 1,000 feet. It's not even close to a mountain. But it's called Mountain of the Lord in Psalm 48. The mountain of the Lord. It's not even a mountain. So why is it called Mountain of the Lord? Why is it called Mountain of the Lord?
It's going to be lifted by
We don't go by because God said so. There's got to be a reason. Because it's
lifted up.
It's lifted up. How high is it lifted up?
All the way.
All the way to heaven. It's not talking about Jerusalem on earth. It's talking about Jerusalem above. Yerushalayim me'olam. Yerushalayim on earth is just a picture of Yerushalayim above. This is why Jerusalem's important. It's not because of what's in Jerusalem. It's because of what's in Jerusalem. That you can look at it and figure out what's up there. And see it. And because if you're just looking at the stuff on earth, it's nothing. It's commandments. That's the difference between the Bible being commandments and the Bible being pictures to let us get to know God. It's just that simple. You got to have something to look at to give you faith, to give you understanding. And the mountain of the Lord, that's why it's called a mountain, because it's high and lifted up. The real one. The real one. Great is the Lord and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, his holy mountain. Who wrote this?
David?
The sons of Korah. Korach. The sons of Korah. The ones who survived. Did David build the temple?
No.
Solomon, his son, did. That means David didn't even live to see the temple on Mount Zion. And yet, he wrote a bunch of psalms about it. Well, this is by the sons of Korah, and they saw it too. Great is the Lord and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, his holy mountain. Beautiful in elevation. Yafeh Nof. Joy of the whole earth is Mount Zion in the far north. The far north of what? It's not in the far north of anything. Not the land of Israel. It's not in the far north of any. It's not even in the far north of Judah. Because it's not in Judah. It's in Benjamin. It's not in the far north of the world. Not in the far north of Asia or Africa or anything. Because it's up that way. That's the north it's talking about. City of the great king. All right. Isaiah 27. In that day a great trumpet is blown, the perishing in Assyria and the scattered in Egypt will come to the holy mountain at Jerusalem. It's always called Har HaKodesh. Har HaKodesh, the holy mountain. It's always called that. Isaiah 40, get yourself up on a high mountain, Zion, Meveseret Tzion, the gospel bearer. Lift up your voice, Jerusalem, Meveseret Tzion. He says it twice. Say, here is your God. Where is your God? Where is your God?
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem.
The temple.
Get yourself up on a high mountain, Tzion, Meveseret Tzion, gospel bringer. Lift up your voice, Meveseret Tzion, gospel bringer Zion, and say, here is your God. Now, if you read a bunch of different versions of the Bible, even the Messianic ones, what they say is, preach to Zion. Bring the gospel to Zion. Exactly the opposite of what it says. It says the gospel comes from Zion because Zion is the one preaching the gospel. Because it's high and lifted up, and it's got this message that comes out to everybody. And all you got to do is look up and listen. And you'll see, Hine Elohecha, behold your God. You'll see God. Hine Elohecha, here is your God. Now Daniel 2, 35 and 45. It's a long passage because Daniel is interpreting Nebuchadnezzar's dream. But at the end of it, when he's interpreting the dream, I just picked out two verses that say what I'm trying to say. In verse 35, he comes to the end of the description and says, then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, the gold, these were all what made up this huge idol of Nebuchadnezzar. Silver and gold were crushed all at the same time and became like chaff from the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away so that not a trace of them was found. But the stone that struck the statue became a great, what does it say? Mountain. The stone grew into a giant mountain and filled the whole earth. That's the kingdom. And then he talks about it again down in verse 45. And he says, inasmuch as you saw that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it crushed the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, the gold, the great God has made known to the king what will take place in the future. What will take place in the future? The kingdom. Yeah. And what does it look like? A mountain. Started out as a stone and then grew into a mountain. That's the kingdom. That's Har Tzion. Har Hagadol, the great mountain. Har Yafenov, the mountain that is beautiful in elevation. Yeah. Now in Zechariah 14, this is interesting. We don't talk about this passage much because there's so much in Zechariah 14, but this is a really cool passage that gives us some very clear details about what parts of Jerusalem will be raised up. And it's very, very clear in its description. Verse 9, and the Lord will be king over all the earth in that day. Bayom Hahu. The Lord will be one, his name one. All the land will be changed into a plain. All the land will be changed into a plain. What's a plain? Flat, yeah. Flat, no mountains. From Geba to Rimmon, south of Jerusalem. But Jerusalem will rise and remain on its site. Will rise. Jerusalem will rise? Jerusalem will rise? How's Jerusalem going to rise? But that's what's going to happen. We saw this amazing footage of Mount St. Helens. Before that thing, the whole top of the mountain blew off and the right side slid off. Right. It grew. It swelled up. It grew. And that's how I picture it. Just swells up. So all of Jerusalem will rise and remain on its site from Benjamin's gate as far as the place of the first gate to the corner gate, from the Tower of Hananel to the king's winepress. Very specific. I know where all these places are. And I've seen them in the kingdom. And people will live in it, and there will be no more curse, and Jerusalem will dwell in security. All right, so that's the good mountain. The good mountain. And that's what Moshe says he wants to see. So let's look back at the passage that we started with. I also asked for grace, or I also graced to mead. Remember how many times? 515, because that's the numerical value of V'etchanan. 515 times. I asked for grace. I graced to mead, and I said, show your servant. Let me, I pray, cross over and see the good land. What good land is he talking about?
Israel, the kingdom.
The kingdom. The kingdom, not the land of Israel, the kingdom. To see the good land beyond the Yarden, this good mountain, what's that? What's the good mountain?
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem and Lebanon. What's Lebanon?
The temple.
The temple. Lift up your eyes, God says. Lift up your eyes prophetically to the west, the north, the south, the east, and see with your eyes. Because you're not going to cross over the Jordan, but I want you to charge Joshua. He will give them as an inheritance the land which you will see. So Moshe saw Tzion, the good mountain, and he saw the temple, Lebanon, in the kingdom. So my question is, do you see Zion? Do you see Zion? And in my opinion, and I just say this from personal experience, in my opinion, the only way to see the kingdom is to be crushed. Because God's voice shatters the righteous, shatters the cedars of Lebanon. And it's the only way to do it. It's the only way to see it. If you don't, it'll all stay up here. It'll all stay up here in your head. And everything will offend you, everything will bother you, everything will irritate you, everything will be, it's not good enough for you, it's how come I don't get, and how come me, and what about me, and how come I, and it'll just be like that forever. It'll never change. And there'll never be any settling, no shalom, no peace, to just say, God, I saw that, and I'm so tiny and insignificant, just blown to shreds, and I don't matter. I just don't matter. What matters is that, the kingdom, and I got to see it. Let's pray. Lord, I ask that you would use this message to reach some people, that you would bring anava, humility, and chen, grace, to many, many people, Lord. I ask, Father, that the forest would not be missed for the trees, that you would bring some people by your Spirit to see your voice, to see your voice from Zion and what it does. In the name of Yeshua, send out your Spirit, Abba. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.